Hello! I've been painting on IKEA phone holders lately, and I have one more here which I've already gessoed. I'll just show you previous ones I've decorated. I have this purple and gold rose one, and the first one I ever painted I can't find anywhere, but this is what it looks like, and you may remember this video I filmed earlier in the year. It's somewhere in my studio, but because I'm reorganizing it, I just can't see where it is. It'll turn up eventually. But for this one, I've let you guys decide what I'm going to paint, so if it doesn't turn out, it's your fault. Let's get into it, shall we? So here are the results from the poll I put up quite a few weeks ago now. 269 people voted, and the clear winner is colourful parrots, so that's what I'm going to do today. At least 3 people had suggested that in the comments as well, so it's the clear winner. The only problem with this phone holder is that the notches are cut at opposite ends on either side, so one is going to be upside down, and also my phone does not fit on this side, so I'm actually going to do one parrot on this side of the phone holder, and then I'll think about something for the back. This is not a very big surface, and I was a bit concerned about how I was actually going to go about this, but I'll do my very best. I'm going for one parrot, a macaw. This is a photo I took a few years ago. It's one of my all-time favourite pictures. I'll zoom in so you can see the amazing detail of this bird. But the first person to suggest this had actually mentioned specifically a macaw, and this is the picture that I thought of. It has so many beautiful rainbow colours, and I have attempted to paint this a couple of times well before I started a YouTube channel, but I'll just show you the process of what I was doing with it in Photoshop. I really want to be able to fit the image onto the phone holder itself, so I trimmed it down a little bit, and I'm also going to resize it so it's a much smaller image to the same dimensions as the phone holder itself. I knew this was going to be really hard to draw freehand because of just how small the surface is, so I'm actually going to make life easier. I turned this into an outline, and I'm just cleaning that up a little bit. I printed this out, and I'm going to use it as my template. There's no way I could deal with the grid on such a small area, but this worked out perfectly. I'm just going to trace this image onto the actual piece of wood itself. This is such a quick way to do it. The photo's mine, so I'm quite happy to do this. And because it has so much detail, this is just the best way I can think of to get this on here and have it in the correct proportion. If I freehand drew this directly onto the block, it would have taken me forever. I'm using some willow charcoal sticks here, and you've probably seen this method and maybe used it yourself as well, but in case you haven't, basically I'm just going to cover the back of the drawing with a whole bunch of charcoal. You can do this with transfer paper as well, or even a graphite pencil, but I find that willow charcoal works the best because it just comes off so easily and it's not such a struggle to transfer it on. I was picking up the pattern of my desk mats, so I'm going over it again, holding it in my hand to get a more even layer. I just really want a nice thick layer of this charcoal, and then I can get a nicely detailed drawing transferred onto the block. I'm very gently laying it down on top of the block because that charcoal is going to rub off very easily and I don't want to smudge it, and then I'm using a bit of tape just to stick it all down so it doesn't move around. That top piece of washi tape would not stick for some reason, so I'm trying again. I think this is a really old tape roll. And now I'm going to use a graphite pencil that I've sharpened to draw over all of the lines on the bird and transfer it onto the block. This is a very time-consuming method, but it's the best one I've found for doing a detailed little drawing like this, and it's so much easier than trying to draw it straight onto the block, because then I don't have to rub anything out and get frustrated. I'm not really drawing in all of the detail of the feathers. I'm just going for the ones that are the most obvious, because then I know exactly where they are and it's going to make the final painting look really good. And once I was done drawing over all of the lines, I'm ripping off the tape, taking half of the paper with it. This is just plain old copy paper, nothing special. But now let's see if it worked, and it worked really well. You can see I'm missing a section where the groove is, but I'll just paint that in as I go. I've got the majority of it here. And because that charcoal is going to come off in a heartbeat, I'm actually drawing over everything once again with the graphite pencil, because then my lines are going to be permanently on there and I'm not going to lose it all before I finish doing the painting. If you've done this using graphite or transfer paper, you probably don't need to do this step. I just like to do this after I've used charcoal, and then I will actually brush all of the charcoal away using this makeup brush, and look at that, it's a perfect pencil drawing. For this painting, I'm actually going to use paints rather than paint pens, and I'm working on this paint palette using Golden Open Acrylics. Let's get painting! The colours I have in that set actually worked out perfectly for this macaw, and because they're slow drying, they act a lot more like oil paints, so they are just so good at blending into each other without drying too quickly and leaving harsh lines. I realised at this point I'd forgotten to rub off some of the graphite, so the lines are really dark, and this yellow is quite translucent, so you can see all of the pencil lines underneath it. I just basically kept layering paint on top of each other until the pencil lines went away. And I'm using pretty small brushes here to do the painting, because this one is definitely the most challenging of the 3 paintings I've done on the different blocks. The other 2 were repeating patterns, and so you can look at them at any angle, whereas this one has to go in a particular direction, and the feathers are just so convoluted. I really wanted to use proper paint to get that lovely blend and detailed look. I think the paint pens would have dried too quickly and I wouldn't have been able to get as much blending or feather detail as I would have liked, whereas these paints are just working out really well, and I'm glad I chose them for this particular painting. Golden Open Acrylics have to be some of my all-time favourite paints. You can tell they're professional grade ones because the colours are so heavily pigmented and vibrant, and also really pure colours with no fillers muddying them up, if that makes any sense. But yes, this painting took me quite a long time to do. I would say it was the hardest option out of all of the ones I'd put up there to vote on, but that's okay. It was also really fun to do, and I was going to go for an all black background like the photo, but I decided just to add in some leaves for a bit more interest, and I'm really glad I made that decision. It's just breaking up the background a little bit. I did not use a reference for these leaves, so they are a little bit blobby, but I think they've actually come out really well in the end. And if you're interested in this photograph I've taken, I've actually uploaded it to Pixabay, so it is a free reference for you to use. I will link it in the description below, and if you want to download it, you are more than welcome to. I have a few other macaw pictures uploaded there as well, but this one is my personal favourite. If you happen to make an artwork of it or any other photo I've stuck up there, I would love to see it, so please tag me on Instagram at Becky. I really love seeing your artworks. But going back to my painting here, I decided I had enough leaves on there, and I'm just going to paint the rest of it black so that the rest of the colours will stand out, especially on the parrot. I was going to go back to that and add some more layers, but I thought it would be good to get the background in, because then that gives me a better idea as to how much more paint I want to add onto the macaw and make it really stand out from that background. I didn't want the leaves too bright either, because I want all of the focus to be on the bird rather than the background, but I'm just trying to give it a tropical looking setting, and this black I was using was starting to dry a little bit, I think, in the palette, so it's gone a bit gloopy, but I think once it's actually dried it looks a lot flatter than what it does at the moment. That notch part is so difficult to paint, but it was actually easier with the brush than it was with the paint pens, so I'm happy about that. Once I'd finished painting this side, I needed to let it sit for a few days to fully dry because these paints are slow drying, but before I flipped it over, I really needed another layer on the macaw to get more details in and to hide some of those pencil lines. The paint here had dried just a tiny bit on the bird, so I'm painting kind of wet on sticky rather than wet on wet, but it was still blending relatively well, and I was able to get a second layer over the top without any issues. I actually used the teal colour at the top of the wing there because that pencil line would not hide, and the teal is one of the most opaque colours I have in the set. It worked out quite well. It's not exactly the same as the photograph, but that's fine because it's a painting, it's not meant to be the photo. I think I got it pretty close though, and with all of the details I added, the beak area is looking a lot better now too. The whole thing is looking very shiny at the moment, and that's due to all of the paint being very wet still, especially that black that took quite a long time to dry because I had put it on in such a thick layer. But once it had dried over the weekend, I could flip it over, and I'm just going around on the other side joining up some of my leaves so that the pattern continues around here. Now I had thought of painting a second parrot, but because it would be upside down with the notch at the top and the phone just not on the right angle, I decided to paint everything black. But then I was thinking this is kind of boring, so I changed my mind partway through, which you'll see in a little while, and I did add something else onto here, mainly to keep the tropical theme going, but I was thinking of something that could be viewed from either angle, so I'm drawing in some little plumeria or frangipani flowers. I'd seen a picture of them and they looked really cute, so I thought I would add these on, and they can be viewed from either angle. I'm blending the paints directly onto the block rather than using a separate palette. I quite like using this technique because it gives quite a variation in colour, rather than mixing it too heavily on a palette. And then when I finished the flowers, I painted the rest of it black. Super easy to do. And here's the finished piece. I hope you like it. The leaves in the background are a bit dodgy, but I really love how the macaw has come out, and the colours look really vibrant. I missed a tiny little bit there, but because this paint takes so long to dry, I'm just going to do a few touch-ups off camera. And here's the back of it. I think I should have added some more green leaves to this to join it up, because it's kind of just floating in space here. I may also do this off camera too. I'm just going to leave it for now before I mess with it too much and make a total mess. Otherwise, I'm really happy with this side, and the flowers are going to be hidden most of the time anyway. Here's what my phone looks like sitting in the holder. It covers the whole picture anyway, but we know it's there, and it also lays sideways if I want to do a landscape picture and I'm using my phone to display the reference image. These are also really handy if you're on a video call and you want to be hands-free. Flipping it around the other way, the phone kind of fits on this side, but not as well. I think it needs to come out of its little case, but I can use it like this if I want to. I much prefer the parrot side though, so here's the one I did today, and then I'll show you the previous ones as well, because guess what I found? The first holder. It was hiding under a pile of junk, as I knew it would be, but here are all three of them together, and I'm really happy with how all of them have turned out. Thank you to the viewers who suggested the parrot. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I love how all three are so completely different from each other. I'd love to hear in the comments which one is your favourite. I really like all three of them, but I think the patchwork quilt is maybe my absolute favourite. That was the first idea I had, and I just think it's turned out really cool, but otherwise it's very hard to pick between them. I hope you've enjoyed my series of phone holder paintings. I've covered them all now. I'd really appreciate a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and you might want to click the subscribe button for more videos. And I'll link the other two videos that I've done up at the top here. The first one was with the Kmart paint pens, and the second is with the Artex paint pens. I've had fun with all three of them. Thank you to everyone who sent in your painting ideas. I really appreciate it. I'm going to do a sketchbook video sometime at painting some of the other ideas too, because there were so many great ones to choose from. I'll see you in my next video. Swatch you later. Bye!